Welcome viewers. Today we'll be discussing about adhocracy. Here I will focus about understanding metric structure, describing the strength and weakness of metric structure with some examples like a case study of metrics at General Mills, and contrast temporary and permanent forms of adhocracy, identifying the specific characteristics of Theory Z organizations, and we will finally conclude with a discussion on Hewlett Packard in San Diego. So, introducing the concept televising the Olympic Games. NBC is an American English language commercial radio and television network owned by NBC Universal. NBC paid $4 billion for the American rights to televise 1988 Summer Olympic Games from Seoul, South Korea. It's not an assignment that happens regularly at NBC. In fact, the last time the network televised an Olympic was in 1972 Winter Games from Sapporo, Japan. NBC has spent 3 years planning for a 2 week extravaganza. First, all preparations had to be done. In addition to NBC's normal broadcasting operations, none of the planning efforts for the Olympics could interfere with the day to day broadcasting of NBC's regular program. It was necessary to take people to their normal jobs to work on Olympics. Someone had to be found to fill for them. Second, the project was immense, and the physical distance of Seoul from NBC New York headquarters, plus language and cultural differences, made the job particularly challenging. There was a 60,000 square foot broadcast center had to be erected in Seoul. 800 million rupees in state of the art technical equipment had to be shipped to South Korea and set up. So, more than 1100 NBC employees, 500 in engineering, 300 in production, and 300 in management and clerical positions were required to run a 100 monitor control room, 15 edit rooms, and 150 tape machines, the 100 NBC cameras, and 17 mobile units, and coordinate operations. Third, televising the Olympic Games demands high flexibility because unexpected world class performance can occur at almost any time. 220 events taking place, 23 different locations of Seoul. In many cases, half a dozen or more events were going on simultaneously, and NBC had to be able to switch from one side to another instantly if something noteworthy was occurring. Finally, NBC had a lot of stake in the games, and it was competing against ABC's successful record of televising last summer and winter Olympics. So, moreover, it had sold almost 1750 minutes of advertising time, and at the same time 9.1 million rupees a minute in prime time. So, its sponsors were expecting very high rating, and if they did not materialize, there was a possibility that NBC would have to return part of its money to advertisers. If the ratings lagged, the estimated 600 to 900 million rupees in profit that NBC was estimating from the games would quickly turn to a loss. So, of course, a successful performance in the ratings would have a positive impact, giving the network fall schedule of a strong boost. How did NBC organize the task by broadcasting the games? They have adopted adhocracy or flexibility. What is that? Let us understand in more details. While NBC is essentially a machine bureaucracy, the structure used to plan and operate the Olympics had few formal rules, regulations. Decision making was decentralized, although carefully coordinated by NBC executives, producers for Olympic operations. There is a need to bring together more than thousands of technical specialists who could apply their skills on a temporary project in a dynamic environment, requiring ability to respond to rapid change. So, led NBC to adhocracy. To have used any other form of design would have lessened the company's effectiveness in achieving the objectives. So, with this, we introduce that the conditions that demand the flexibility of adhocracy may not occur every day and not be applicable to most organizations. But what does not reduce the adhocracy is importance. As organizations take on increasing demands, innovative and complex activities, they will very likely return to adhocracy or some variant of it as necessary means to complete these activities successfully. This module we will discuss at a number of designs that are in varying degree or forms of adhocracy. How to keep in mind that Weber's ideal bureaucracy or the pure adhocracy is also an abstraction. This is probably no such thing in a pure adhocracy. An organization's design may be generally adhocratic or moving towards adhocracy, but no organization is likely to have all the characteristics attributed in one of the earlier modules to the pure adhocracy model. So, we with this we will throw light on what is matrix type of structure, which is an organizational design that assigns specialists from specific functional department to work on one or more interdisciplinary teams which are led by the project leaders, project or product leaders. The matrix adds a flexibility dimension to bureaucracy's economies of specialization, and it is the flexibility dimension which is created by use of multidisciplinary teams that places the matrix into adhocracy classification. The matrix is a structural design that assigns specialists from specific functional departments to work on one or more interdisciplinary teams which are led by project leaders. There are people who are leading the projects, or those leaders lead to the success of that particular project. The matrix adds a flexibility dimension to bureaucracy's economies of specialization, and it is the flexibility dimension which is created by use of multidisciplinary teams that places the matrix into adhocracy classification. So, a matrix type of structure has a general manager of respective divisions: production, finance, marketing, research and development, and they have project leaders of respective project types. So, the person who is working in the production group and is also working with the project leader. Matrix form as used by a team. The matrix organizational structure with concurrent engineering approach, there is a, for example, integrated construction group. In that group, there are technical divisions, production divisions, financial divisions, and marketing divisions. And the project A has a person from technology team, an architect, a design and production engineer, and there are also associated members. And there is a kind of relationship. They respond to the suppliers, the customers, and there is a association. So they work as a team. The metric structure are the horizontal and vertical axis in a matrix always made up of functional units and the projects. For most part, matrix designs evolve around functional units. However, the vertical axis might be products or programs as well as the project groups. As an example, I will discuss how General Mills utilizes the matrix to coordinate its 33 consumer products. So, the most obvious and the structural characteristics of the matrix is that it breaks the unity of command concept. It has foregone the concept of unity of command as given by Henry Fayol in its 14 principles of management. As a cornerstone of bureaucracy, which requires every employee to have one and only one boss to whom he or she reports. Employees in the metric structure have two bosses, their functional department managers and their project managers. The matrix has a dual chain of command. There is a normal vertical hierarchy within functional departments, which is overlaid by form of lateral influence. So, the matrix is unique in that it legitimates lateral channels of influence. So, metric structure, project managers have authority over their functional members who are part of the manager's project team. Referring back, the purchasing specialists who are responsible for the procurement activities would be responsible for both managers of purchasing. The metric structure authority is shared between two managers. Generally, this is done by giving the project managers authority over project employees relative to the project goals. Decisions such as promotions, salary, recommendations, and annual review of each employee typically remains part of the functional manager's responsibility. However, every day taking care of the project needs, improvising the project, making some changes in the project, or how the product will evolve over a period of time, all these decisions are being taken by the project manager, project team leader. If you look at General Mills, there is no shortage of names like name brands of at General Mills. Every consumer food brand at General Mills has its own product manager. The product manager acts as a business manager. They collect all the internal, external information which might affect the brand, set goal for it, and establish strategies and tactics to achieve those objectives and goals. They are responsible for identifying the key issues, thoroughly reviewing their business and their competitors, formulating and operating plans, and it includes a sales forecast, the cost to meet the forecast and advertising, pricing and trade tactics. The plan is submitted to and negotiated with the marketing director, and who is responsible for several product managers. Once a plan is approved, executing it is product manager's responsibility, but with this task goes almost no formal authority. He or she has control over the budget but little else, and must therefore be a master of persuasion. If the product manager needs special support from the sales force or increased input from the plant to gear up a big advertising campaign, he or she has to sell the idea to the people who report to the functional managers in charge of sales and manufacturing. Similarly, if the manager thinks that the product needs different packaging, more focus on television commercials, reformulation of ingredients, he or she must impress the appropriate support group and importance of paying particular attention to the brand. So, to summarize, that General Mills use the metric structure as a way to improve or to give brand managers a feeling of running their own show. And in spite of being a well established company, a hierarchical company with the sales of over 290 billion rupees a year. So, why should we use matrix type of structure? The matrix has been very popular for quite some time. Today, we see that it is used in advertising agencies, aerospace firms, research and development organizations, and laboratories, construction companies. And it is also used in hospitals, government agencies, universities, management consulting firms, and entertainment companies. So, what these organizations have in common that would lead us to use the matrix design? The evidence indicates that three conditions that favor matrix type of structure is: first, environment pressure from two or more critical sectors. The second one is interdependence between departments. Third is economies of scale in the use of internal resources. The typical matrix type of structure is designed to have a dual focus, such as functions and products. An advertising agency, for example, may have to maintain its technical knowledge, that is, functional focus, while being responsive to the client's needs, that is, the product focus. The metric structure allows agencies to create a team of a client and would be overseen by an accountant executive and composed of functional specialists from the firm's copywriting, media development, marketing research departments. And the duality might also be created by the need to respond to the geographic differences. You might find a matrix designed around functions and geography, product and geography. Again, as an illustration, an insurance company may meet its competition by offering variety of products, that is life insurance, health insurance, fire insurance from fire, automobile, and respond to area differences by establishing regional offices. The key, however, is that if the environmental pressure is incoming from any single sector, there should be need for a dual hierarchy. The second requirement is interdependence between departments. In our previous advertising agency example, the services of copywriters, media developers, marketing researchers were needed to meet the client's needs, the job could not be done by one of the specialists alone. The degree of interdependencies, of course, changes in response to the demands from environment. The mix of people on any project team will reflect the objectives of the project at that particular time. The final condition that favors the metric structure is internal economies of scale. The organization's activities could be structured solely around the project. For example, the aerospace firm's projects could have its own designers, design engineers, contract administrators, and the like. They would permanently attach to a given project and work solely on that project only. But such a design tends to be inefficient when the organization is of moderate size, cannot be easily divisible, or they cannot be deployed in different divisions. The metric structure would allow aerospace firm to allocate design engineers temporarily to different projects. The company would be able to take advantage of specialization that due to its large size, for example, employing number of design engineers with a wide range of unique competencies, skills, and experiences, but it could never be justified if the specialists worked only on a single project team. So, in fact, the projects tended to be small and employees were rigidly assigned to a single project. It would be very likely that some projects would have an adequate talent pool and to complete their work successfully. There are two types of metric structure. The project or product type can be undergoing some kind of changes continuously, or they can be relatively enduring or stable. The temporary metric structure, the second, represents a permanent metric structure. The aerospace example illustrates a temporary metric structure, and when new contracts are secured, project teams are created by drawing members from functional departments. A team exists only for the life of the project on which it is working. So, while each project might last half a dozen or more years, the fact that companies may have a number of projects operating constantly, the makeup of the metric structure changes constantly. New contracts demand the formation of new projects, so that at one point of time you might find several projects while winding down while others in their infancy. The projects or the products in the permanent metric stay relatively intact over time. Large colleges of business use the permanent matrix type of structure when they superimpose project structures. Undergraduate programs, graduate programs, research and development, and executive development programs over the functional departments of accounting, finance, management, marketing, and the like. Directors of productive structures utilize faculty from different departments to achieve their goals, like centers of transportation studies, which are serving a unique objective to cater to the needs of transportation sector. You have centers for data science, sustainable development, rural development, which uses functional expertise of faculty members working from different departments or having their functional expertise from their disciplines. So, the directors of the graduate business program staffs his courses with members from various departments, notices that products do not change. Thus, we say that this is a permanent metric structure. Why use this type of structure? It provides clear lines of responsibilities for each product line, and the success or failure, for instance, of the executive development program in a college of business lies directly with the director. Without the metric structure, it is difficult to find anyone who can coordinate and take responsibility for the effective performance of the development program. Then permanent metric structures are also evident in some large retail chains such as Reliance and several other retail chains. These chains create dual lines of authority when they establish store managers equivalent to the product manager and merchandise managers and that are equivalent to the functional managers. The formal is responsible for performance of his or her store. The latter's responsibility relates to purchasing appropriate merchandise for these stores. These dual lines of authority create two sets of permanent managers who have separate responsibilities. Now, let us look at the strengths and weaknesses of the metric structure. The strength of metric structure lies in its ability to facilitate coordination, multiple complex and interdependent activities. As the organization becomes bigger, its information processing capacity can become overloaded. In a bureaucracy, complexity results in increased formalization. The direct and frequent contact between different specialists in the metrics can make the better communication and more flexibility. Information permeates the organization and more quickly reaches those people who need to take accountability to it. The dual lines of authority reduce tendencies of departmental members to become so busy projecting their little worlds that goals become displaced. Advantages of metric structure, we noted that it facilitates efficient allocation of specialists. When individuals with highly specialized skills are lodged in one functional department or project group, their talent is monopolized and underutilized. Metric structure has advantages of scales by providing the organization with both best resources and effective way of ensuring their efficient deployment. Increased ability to respond to rapid change in the environment, efficient means of balancing customer requirements for project completion and cost control with the organization's need to economic efficiency and development of technical capability, increased motivation by providing environment democratic norms preferred by scientific and professional employees. The major disadvantages of metric structure is the confusion it creates because of the dual chain of command. Its propensity to foster power struggles and the stress it places on individuals. There is a immense amount of pressure or stress on the employees because they are trying to satisfy or meet the needs of or expectations of dual bosses or dual two bosses from the functional as well as the project team. So when you dispense with unity of command concept, ambiguity is significantly increased and ambiguity often leads to conflict. For example, it is frequently unclear who reports to whom, and it is not unusual for project managers to fight over getting the best specialists assigned to their projects. As there are limited number of talent pool available with the organization, so every project manager would like to uh, deploy or employ the best talent from respective divisions. So this is leading to conflict. Confusion and ambiguity also creates the seeds of power struggle. Bureaucracy reduces the potential of power grabs by defining the rules of the game or rules and standardized norms and processes. When those rules are violated, power struggle between functional and project manager emanates. And for individuals who desire security and absence from ambiguity, this environment can be very stressful. It can lead to immense amount of mental stress. So reporting to more than two boss, reporting relationship or dual chain of command introduces the concept of conflict and very unclear expectations, introducing role ambiguity. The comfort of bureaucracy predictability is absent. There is you cannot predict the behavior, replaced by insecurity and stress. Now, we can also throw light on what is the concept of theory Z. It is no secret that Japanese have been very successful at producing high quality products at a very competitive price. Part of the success of Japanese companies is due to the way the large Japanese organizations have been designed. So, the characteristics of typical large American bureaucracy, the theory A organizations, and the characteristics which are inherent with the Japanese company, that is theory Z organizations. We will try to see theory A and theory Z organizations. Theory A emphasizes on short term employment, whereas theory J talks about lifetime employment. Theory A mostly is designed as per the American philosophy, American companies, how they develop the characteristics of an organization. And Theory J speaks about the organizations, the mostly the Japanese organizations, and we will compare and contrast the characteristics. Theory A emphasizes on short term employment, Theory J emphasizes on lifetime employment. Career paths in case of Theory A, there is also individualized decision making, the focus on frequent appraisals, individualized decision making, individualized responsibility, frequency of appraisals, explicit formalized appraisals, rapid promotion, segmented concern for people. Theory J emphasizes on lifetime employment, non specialized career paths, contextualized decision making, consensual decision making, that is, collective decision making, collective responsibility, infrequent appraisal, it's not very frequently done, implicit informal appraisal, and slow promotion, comprehensive concern for people. So, Theory Z, which is proposed by William Ochi of University of California at Los Angeles, has found that several American companies, whether knowingly or unknowingly, have developed certain systems that have many of the characteristics which are evident in Japanese firms. And he found, for instance, that IBM, Procter and Gamble, Eastman Kodak, and Hewlett and Packard have lot in common with the Japanese systems. Uchi has coined the term Theory Z to describe the Americanized versions of the Japanese model. And let's briefly overview the characteristics of American bureaucracies in order to have a point of reference for comparing Theory J and Theory Z organizations. Theory A bureaucracy is designed to control employees through tight monitoring structural systems. It is adapted to handle high rate of employee turnover. Jobs are defined narrowly and employees are required to specialize. An employee's specialized skills lend themselves to transferability between organizations, thus encouraging mobility. If employees become frustrated, they have ready alternatives in employment opportunities with other organizations. Theory J, similarly, organizations can hire the employees from other firms and give them considerable responsibility and competitive salary because these individuals have skill sets which are transferable, allowing them to become quickly productive to their next employer. In a system where members are transient, it is important to minimize interdependencies. Therefore, Theory A organizations individualize decision making and responsibility. High level of turnover also creates regular vacancies. There is opportunity for promotion. There is because supervisions know little about their employees beyond their job related activities. Appraisals tend to be formalized and impersonal and relate only to specific measures of job performance. These appraisals, made on at least an annual basis, they become the input for which the promotion decisions are being made. When employees come and go quickly, they are required for to assume individual responsibilities, pursue specialized career paths, and are appraised on impersonal criteria. They have little motivation to identify with the organization or to exert energy. The Japanese model, that is Theory Z, is very different structural animal, and the difference is essentially a function of low turnover. When employees are hired with the belief of being a permanent employee, management can justify developing an organization in which control is maintained through socialization process. While it is a much slower process, it results in a structure that is more likely to mirror an adhocracy than the mechanistic bureaucracy that Theory A creates. Movement in Japanese organizations tend to be far more horizontal than vertical, and instead emphasizing vertical promotions. Japanese employees are rotated around the organizations. This creates employees are generalist rather than specialist. The creation of generalist encourages teamwork and cooperation and fosters informal communication networks, and it also helps to coordinate work activities across functional areas. Decision making in Japanese organizations is not participative in as in the American sense of the term. That is not characterized by frequent group meetings and negotiations between managers and subordinates. In Japanese model, the managers discusses consults informally who may be affected. When all are familiar with the proposal, a formal request or decision is being made, and as a result, the previous informal preparation it is almost always ratified. The key is not so much agreement with the decision as it is for those concerned to have the opportunity to advise about it and to have their views heard fairly. The Japanese system emphasizes organizing work around groups rather than individuals. Tasks are assigned to groups and there is a collective responsibility for outcomes. Japanese employees are appraised against a number of criteria. These appraisals are less frequent and more informal than the American firms. Regular and frequent performance appraisals are necessary in theory organizations because of member mobility and need to have adequate data from which to make promotion decisions. Lifetime employment and slow promotion results in appraisals that emphasize ability to get along with others. Finally, theory led organizations has a holistic concern for well-being of employees. Management considers its human resource, not its financial or physical resource. To be most important is the search for long term success. Managers will be found spending a great deal of their time talking to employees about everyday matters. Every senior manager in Japan regularly spends time with operating personnel to learn about their concern. So, the Theory Z organization is the Japanese model which has been adapted to fit into American culture. The characteristics of Theory Z organization has a long-term employment, moderately specialized career paths, consensual decision making, individualized responsibility, infrequent appraisal, implicit informal appraisal with explicit formalized measures. There is a slow promotion, comprehensive concern for people. So, this table identifies the attributes for most part. As you can see, it is very closely parallel to Theory Z model, and however, it has been modified to reflect the American values such as individualism, allocation of rewards on the basis of performance. So, Theory Z, firms like IBM, Procter and Gamble don't guarantee their employees lifetime jobs. Layoffs results only when severe economic setbacks happen. These Theory Z type companies treat their employees as a valuable and scarce resource to be nurtured over the long term. The Japanese system is attempting to ensure that employee is a valuable and scarce resource to be nurtured over the long term. With the organization, the Japanese system is in attempting to ensure that employees fit in properly. Cultural dissimilarity types, particularly women and minorities, are selectively excluded from the mainstream. Such factors are unacceptable in the United States. Theory Z organizations therefore contain less homogeneous labor force than the Theory J forms. Employees in Theory Z forms once or twice in a year. The process emphasizes objective measures of actual job performance rather than informal or subjective assessment. Just as Theory A organizations are bureaucratic, the Theory Z organizations are essentially adhocratic. Complexity is low since excessive layers of management are unnecessary. Formalization is also low. The concern with long term employment, organizations' loyalty, and teamwork acts to regulate employee behavior. Operating decisions are made by work teams. Result is an organization's design that is significantly more like those popular in Japan than the traditional mechanistic structure that has historically been dominated by American scene. Now let us discuss the case of Hewlett Packard. Hewlett Packard, an electronics company founded in 1939, the firm was committed early on giving the meaning to work as well as to make profit. And part of the commitment was to provide long term employment and establish generous profit sharing plan. The HP plant at San Diego, which designs and manufactures computer plotters, follows the original HP commitment. Plant management is commitment to not laying off employees. For instance, in 1970s during recession, every employee at HP took a 10% pay cut. As a result, no one was laid off. Management was downplaying authority and strongly supporting group decisions. HP employees, for example, meet weekly to resolve production problems, but the HP plant seeks to blend the American concern for individualism with the Japanese collectivism. In contrast to Japan, there are nor does anyone wear a uniform to identify rank. Pay raises at HP are based on merit and seniority. Performance appraisal occurs 4 times a year. Evaluations are based on teamwork and ability to meet or exceed individual quotas. The San Diego facility employs 1,500 people. Internal culture is informal. Everyone, including management, dresses casually. Managers are operatives alike are addressed on a first name basis. Flexible work hours are used so that employees can adjust their hours individually. Machines are set up to allow individuals to work on their own speed. And to conclude this discussion, we started this module with a discussion on the matrix type of structure. We further discussed about strengths and weaknesses of matrix structure, and when this configuration matrix type of structure should be used. To better understand the concept, we illustrated the case of General Mills implementing matrix structure. We further compared temporary versus permanent forms of adhocracy and identified the characteristics of theory Z, then organizations, and comparing theory A with the theory Z. And finally, we are concluding the discussion by a case study of Hewlett Packard in San Diego. Thank you.